Hello everyone, Anki back again here, and so today we will be reacting to Game Theory. Now, Game Theory is one of the oldest channels that I've watched, and they are by far one of my favorite. I've never seen a channel that can combine both education and entertainment in such a fun way, actually. I cannot say how many times they've helped me in a test. And my father, he's not a big fan of game theory, but he is a gigantic fan of film theory because he's actually writing a thesis right now. And film theory is where I help him get a lot of his information that he uses. So, just, Matt, if ever you watch this video one day, I must say thank you very much. You have really helped with my father's thesis. And if you might notice that the quality of this video is much better, that's because now I've decided to completely stop using the camera from my computer and just use my phone right now. This is my phone, and so for the lighting, I just use my lamp. So please tell me whether you prefer this way or the old way of doing it. And so, yeah. Let's start off with this video. The Secret Desert Origin of Creepers. Now, funnily enough, I think that was like one of the first episodes I ever watched of Game Theory, actually, which was on the Creepers. So I want to see like whether he will continue on with what he discovered in that last video, or is he going to completely separate himself and go in a completely different direction? That's just going to be interesting to see. What I'm going to do is I'm going to watch it all in one go, and then I'm going to try to like pause it at different parts. We'll see. Or I could probably just like pause it immediately. I'll see.
Here we see the Eye of Horus. The ancient Egyptians used it as a symbol of protection and good health.
Ooh.
And here we have ourselves the Ankh, representing life. Write that down.
Yes.
And this one, well, we just haven't figured this one out yet.
Dr. MatPat, what's that hissing sound?
Probably just the sound my torch makes when it's... Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, the show that continues to chisel away at the hidden lore of Minecraft. And in that little archaeological dig, we've covered the secrets hidden in a lot of Minecraft's environments, from the game's underwater biomes, to the woodland mansions and caves, to what lies beyond the portals to the Nether and the End. But one that I've largely left ignored up till now has been the desert biome, which I can now say, having researched this theory, was a huge mistake on my part. While the desert might be lacking in life, it is teeming with lore, filled with subtle game design decisions that give us details about the long-forgotten ancient world of this game, and connecting in with a lot of the theories that we've had since the earliest days of the channel. In short, the desert is where everything in the lost history of Minecraft's world began, which is why it is a shame that I am only starting to cover it now. So I hope you're thirsty, theorists, thirsty for a nice, tall, cool glass of knowledge, that is, because today is all about cats, creepers, and desert temples, oh my. But now, to begin with a quick refresher, my little Minecraft lore series, which I've been building on for the better part of 2 years, began with the premise that the world of Minecraft was once home to an ancient civilization of builders who left behind the structures that we see today. Over time, and many episodes of Game Theory, we've been able to show that this ancient race was obsessed with preserving life, leading to experiments with soul sand that resulted in the creation of the Wither, alongside other mobs that might also be made from souls. And while I think I've made a pretty solid case for all that so far, today we're going to examine a piece of evidence in the game that is by far the strongest argument for this being the true history of the Minecraft universe. One absolutely intended by the game developers. And not just me, you know, doing that thing that I always do where I insert lore where lore was never meant to go. So what exactly am I talking about? Well, if we examine the blocks of the temples that spawn randomly into the desert biome, we see a symbol that looks like a real-world hieroglyph, which in ancient Egypt was the symbol of life, the Ankh. And this should should immediately strike you as odd. The world of Minecraft is entirely fictional, and largely a blank slate, where we can layer in whatever adventures we want to have in this world. And yet, for some reason, this is our one instance of a real-world symbol being used in the Minecraft universe. I mean, when the game's developers were designing these structures, they didn't have to use any symbol. It's not like jungle temples or underwater temples have any sort of real-world symbology in them. So that's already an odd little outlier about these temples. But beyond that, if they really felt the need to use...
Didn't he say that in the Underwatch episode that he thought that they looked like ziggurats and that they had like 23 pillars? Although that technically is not a symbol, but still.
hieroglyphics, there are dozens of iconic ones that they could have chosen, like the Eye of Horus, which, if you ask me, is much more iconic. Get it? Iconic? I hate myself so much. But instead, they decided to go with the Ankh, the symbol of life. Interesting. What's more, the Ankh didn't just symbolize life. It was a symbol of the idea of the continuity of life. The ancient Egyptians were famous for mummifying their dead and then building elaborate, beautiful, and massive tombs for them. All of this was based on the idea that what we now think of as death wasn't the end of life, but rather just one step on their journey into the afterlife. Hence the need to preserve the physical body even after all signs of life leave it. That is roughly what the Ankh stood for. Eternal life. Life after death. Which, if you ask me, ties in pretty neatly with the theory that I've been crafting about these Minecraft builders. An ancient civilization obsessed with life and finding a way to conquer death? Check. Building a bunch of ancient structures that have endured to the present day, leaving archaeologists like us trying to piece together how these ancient civilizations operated? Check again. And this is just scratching the surface. The more that we dig into the desert biome, the more we start to get a clearer picture of what kinds of projects those ancient builders were working on. Oh yeah, we're talking about those guys. One of gaming's most iconic enemies, the Creeper. One of the first things that every player learns about the desert pyramids is, well, you gotta be careful, because the people who built them left behind some traps. Traps in the form of TNT. In fact, desert pyramids are one of the very few places in the game that you can actually find TNT. You can find TNT near the ocean by looting buried treasure and shipwrecks, but the only places that you're gonna be finding TNT in the world itself are in the desert pyramids or in certain woodland mansion rooms. Put a pin in that woodland mansion stuff. We're going to come back to that in a few minutes. Now, the desert temple TNT is notable because TNT has a very specific connection to the Creeper. Obviously, TNT and the Creeper are both very explodey. They both make a similar hissing sound. You may also notice that crafting TNT requires gunpowder, and one of the few reliable sources of gunpowder is killing creepers. What you might not know about the Creeper is that they are literally made of TNT.
No joke,
in the official Minecraft book, the MatBestiary, you get to see a cross-section of a creeper that has a TNT block shoved right into the center of its body.
Honestly,
now, in case you didn't realize this...
That annoys me, actually, the fact that in the MatBestiary it shows, like, TNT. For one fact, okay... It's okay to, like, put, like, TNT and stuff. I understand it's fictional, but still, like, that block of TNT is, like, what, like, what, 1/10 of the size of a normal block of TNT that we have in the overworld? Or just in Minecraft in general, not just in the overworld, but a block of TNT already, and a creeper does not do only 1/10 of the exploding damage of a normal TNT block. I don't know the stats, but... it's way more than 1/10, honestly. It's like, what, like 1/2? Or is it... I honestly forgot. I have not played Minecraft in a little while. Actually, now I should start up again. But yeah, that like, this picture here has always bothered me a lot when it comes to the creepers and their anatomy.
Mother Nature doesn't tend to put neat little labels on your internal organs.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
exactly.
all those dissections in a high school science class would be way easier. No, this outright tells us that the Creeper was an artificial creation by some sort of people that would label a block of explosives as TNT. Like, for example, the same civilization that built the desert pyramids and rigged them with TNT traps. And yeah, I get that the TNT label is kind of a joke, but also it's kind of not a joke, because in that same MatBestiary entry, which is written from the perspective perspective of an in-world adventurer, they point out that, quote, the ancient desert temples clearly portray the creeper's image. Now, it might seem weird at first to suggest that the creepers were made by a civilization located in a desert, or even made in a desert at all. After all, creepers are green, and the desert biome is significantly less green than other places in the game world. But remember, this mob was made by an ancient civilization, and the desert they lived in might not be completely identical to the desert that we see today. In fact, just like with the Ankh, this is another place where I think turning to real-world Egypt can actually give us some insight. While most people's mental picture of Egypt just includes things like the pyramids and sand, lots and lots of sand, Egypt is also home to the Nile River, which is surrounded by lush plant life. Now, way back in 2014, I actually did a Minecraft episode all about the creeper. Not a lore episode, but a science episode trying to pick apart what the creeper could possibly be. Back then, I theorized that the creeper's green color was peat moss, decayed vegetation often found near bodies of water like bogs, rivers, and marshes. And wouldn't you know it, but peat is, in fact, found near rivers like the Nile River in real-world Egypt. So yeah, turns out that real-world Egypt is home to the sort of stuff that creepers could potentially be made out of. But of course, we don't care about real-world deserts, we care about Minecraft deserts. Could a lush green bomb monster come out of there? We unfortunately don't see the same kind of lush floral wildlife in the game that we see in real-world Egypt after all. But could Minecraft's deserts have once flowed with a river similar to the Nile? Is there even a way that we could possibly tell this fact in a video game? Yes and yes. In fact, we can know it in the game in much the same way that real-world researchers have to solve the same problem in real life, using geologic formation. Answering the question of what ancient worlds looked like is something that real-world researchers have to tackle all the time. Since Mars has been in the news lately, let's use that as our example. Many scientists currently believe that Mars was once home to liquid water, but why would they think that considering the planet is currently drier than Donkey's sense of humor? Well, because of geologic formations. The surface of Mars has canyons, the same kind of canyons that would be carved by a flowing river, and have been carved by a flowing river here on Earth. By the same token, we can look at the desert hills in Minecraft and conclude the high likelihood that they also would have been made by ancient waterways slowly carving away at the land bit by bit, year after year. How
like those pieces right here, if you're talking about like these pieces here that stick on the side, aren't those just like sand dunes normally? And if the water were to flow down, that wouldn't you see like here on the sides as well? Probably just like the image that you chose there, Matt, but still, it's a bit hard to believe here with your image that you chose. You could have used like other stuff as well, like another picture instead. That's like a small nitpick. It's not very important to the overall theory, just like a small nitpick of mine. But yeah, sure, it could have been. Although, don't you also find like... No, actually, no. No, you don't. And probably that's why wells. Huh. I'm wondering if he's going to talk about like the desert wells you can find.
do I know that I'm not completely overthinking this? Remember, these aren't just sand dunes. If you start digging down, you hit sandstone, a rock that is formed mostly in rivers, lakes, the ocean floor, and beaches. All places that either currently have or once had water. So yeah, given what we know about real-world Egypt, the geologic formations of the biome, the fact that creepers are depicted in the temples, the connections to TNT, and heck, just the fact that creepers spawn in deserts, we get a good sense that...
Although, there's just like one thing, and wait, actually, I should watch to the end here to see whether he's gonna say it or not.
Creepers, the ancient builders, and the desert biomes may just all be connected. But if you look at the loot that appears in desert pyramids, another interesting picture starts to emerge. For one thing, you can loot ancient chests and find bones and rotten flesh. Not all that different from real-world archaeologists uncovering ancient Egyptian pyramids and finding preserved human remains. Oh god. When we loot boxes in Minecraft and get rotten flesh, it's actually the flesh of ancient humans? We're desecrating 8-bit corpses? Oh, that puts it in an entirely new perspective. But what's really interesting about this, outside of the fact that now we've realized that we're just all poking dead bodies, is the next most common item that we'll find in these chests: string. Now, string might seem like the odd one out here. Maybe it's just a coincidence that it appears with the exact same frequency as sand and gunpowder, but I think there's something else going on here. Consider this. In the Minecraft world, string is connected to cats. After all, tamed cats have a chance of giving string to the player, and cats drop string when they die. The premise is that cats...
To know that someone would have had to kill a cat. You monster! Who in their right mind would kill a cat to get string? Get this. Okay, anyway.
Slow.
Yeah, anyway. He did not say it. Which is something that whenever you look at like his theories about like the different mobs in the game, he always talks at one point about their names, okay? Like, for example, when he did the underwater one about the underwater temples, when he talked about the guardians, he also talked about their name, guardian, and what it implied. Or otherwise the strongholds that lead to the Ender Dragon, the fact they're called strongholds. Or otherwise one of the latest ones where with a collab with Dream, where it was the Warden. Why was it called Warden? Where they theorized that the Warden was made by the ancient builders to guard the strongholds. If you haven't watched that theory, I'm sorry for spoiling it. But here, like, Creeper, like, what is the origin behind that name, or what is the meaning, more of that name? I hope it's gonna touch about that, because otherwise that's like a slight, that's slightly forgetful on his part, otherwise. Anyway.
Playing with string. But why would the ancient builder civilization that made the desert pyramids have any sort of connection with cats? Well, once again, we can turn to
Ancient
real-world
Egypt.
Egypt. The ancient Egyptians considered cats to be sacred. A number of Egyptian deities had cat heads. Ancient religious texts from the time detailed the protective function of cats, as they were considered responsible for killing venomous snakes, and were considered in the first dynasty of Egypt to play an important role in keeping the pharaoh safe. Even on his journey into the afterlife, skeletal remains show that many pharaohs were buried with cats to keep them safe. The fact that Egyptians held cats as sacred was something that enemies would sometimes take advantage of in battle. In the 6th century BC, during the Battle of Pelusium, Persian soldiers used cats as shields, expecting that Egyptians would be hesitant to attack if they thought they would risk hurting cats. Even wilder than the fact that they tried this as a combat maneuver is the fact that it actually worked. So how does this relate to the Minecraft?
Of course, yes!
Well, wouldn't you know it, but there's a particular Minecraft mob that's repelled by the appearance of cats. The Creeper. It's a weird detail, right? Why this creature of all mobs would avoid something as random as cats? Well, it suggests either 1, that it's scared of cats, or 2, that it is the creation of a civilization that somehow found cats important.
Or probably the fact that dogs, there's your second most common pet, chases skeletons. And so they just thought of a way to use the cats as well, because otherwise, literally, like, what other purpose does a cat serve? I presume when I play Minecraft, whenever I take a cat, it's always to protect me from creepers. Otherwise, other than that, I never, ever get a cat. I usually just take a dog. But yeah, apart from that, like, there's no other reason. Like, that's like, it's one of its only purposes. I don't know. You people who play Minecraft or know more than me about Minecraft, you should answer that question in the comments down below. Anyway.
Avoid cats because they don't want to hurt them, just like the ancient Egyptians avoided cats in wartime for fear of hurting the sacred creatures. I mean, seriously, it seems highly possible that the ancient builders made creepers with their own cat-worshipping sensibilities in mind. But those ancient desert builders aren't the only ones in the Minecraft world to worship cats. If you've ever found a woodland mansion, you might have stumbled across a room with a giant cat statue. It is unexpected, to say the least.
It's weird, yeah.
Why would they do that? Well, you might say that the cat statue is a tribute to the Minecraft lead designer's pet cat Newton, and you'd be right.
Really?
But there are lots of places that you could put this Easter egg. Why place it here in the Woodland Mansion specifically? Well, remember earlier this episode when I mentioned that TNT only appears in 2 places in the Minecraft world? One was the Desert Pyramid, obviously, but the other is the Woodland Mansion, where you also find chests that are booby-trapped with TNT. Something tells me that the Illagers might be copying someone's homework. And not just with cats and TNT either, but with the whole concept of life itself. I've spent multiple episodes trying to prove to you how the Illagers are experimenting with the power of eternal life, most notably through their usage of the totems of the Undying. But these Egyptian connections just take it all one step further. Cats, TNT, Ankhs, a quest for eternal life, from ancient Egypt to Minecraft desert temples to woodland mansions, it all connects. And now we start to see how these pieces may start to fall together. Could it be that creepers were some of the earliest creations of the ancient builders, living in their desert temples.
And how are they
Perhaps it
still
was their
alive?
experiments with life and creating
Like,
life that led to the
how
creation
are
of a
they, like,
walking,
escaped?
sentient pillar of TNT. And as a society that valued cats, just like their counterparts in real-world Egypt, and as evidenced by the strings stored throughout their loot boxes, they endowed their creations with a similar respect for felines. And from there, could it be that illagers are long-lost descendants of that culture, with their cat statues and their TNT booby traps? Or are they just imitating this ancient culture, cargo culting it without really knowing the logic or reason behind it? Who knows? The answer to that question may be coming. I hear that this summer we're going to be able to do our own archaeological excavations in Minecraft. I mean, I could dig it, as in archaeology pun. Get it? Again, I hate myself. I am so sorry. Anyway, until
don't.
that
It's
moment,
fun.
that, my friends,
I like
is the
it. You're
uncanny
like one of the
connection
only
between
ones
creepers, cats,
who
and
does
desert
good
temples.
puns.
The strange
Yes,
coincidences
I find
just
your
keep
puns
building,
good,
don't they?
MatPat.
You can bet I'll be here to cover it all. But until the next one, remember, it's
that
all
just
just a theory.
A game theory.
Thanks for watching. You know,
Okay. Overall, like I said, that was actually quite good. Actually, I'm impressed. It's a good video. Although, yeah, like I said, I am a slightly bit disappointed about the fact that he didn't speak at all about like the name Creeper. Which doesn't really make much sense. Like creeper, like the man who creeps, the thing who creeps. Yeah, they creep up behind you, but still. Which also brings me to another question, which is like, if the creepers were made by these ancient builders, then how are they still alive today? Because the way I see it is that the creeper, if they were made genetically, does that mean they can reproduce? A bit like when we fling out their spores, like when peat moss throws out its spores out. And in that case, if that is the case, how do they grow afterwards? That's more of a sciencey question. But yeah, like how, if that is not the case and they do not reproduce, like in any way whatsoever, how are they still alive today whenever one of them dies, that's like permanent? And actually, like, how did they even like escape? How are they still creepers to this day? That's like one of the only things I don't like about this theory right now, just by watching it here just once. It doesn't explain how the creepers are still alive today. Because if they were like the earliest creations, like if that did not work, if I were ancient race of builders, once I would have done my first creation, I would have like terminated it, not like thrown it into the wild. That slightly seems a bit too dangerous. So yeah, that's like my only nitpick with this theory. But overall, it's actually a very good theory. I'm impressed, actually. Well, I mean, I'm always impressed. I always think that game theory, film theory, and food theories, which is always very impressive. I also like the science, although with the science it's a bit more picky because I like Austin, except he goes over a much greater variant of video games compared to Matt. I mean, like Matt, like, what was it last time I checked? Like 46, 47 episodes in total about FNAF. I mean, I like Five Nights at Freddy's. I'm a huge FNAF fan, but still, I still think that's like going slightly overboard. But anyway, yeah, so I'll leave a link to this video down in the comment section, down in the description, and also a link to the rest of the playlists. So yeah, thank you very much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next video.